In this video, I answer the question, will this technology, AR and VR, replace our teachers? First of all, the answer is no. There's absolutely no way that technology could replace a teacher. I'm going to refer to these notes, so forgive me if I look down a little bit, but there's just so much I want to say, and I want to make sure that I cover everything and that I can cover it in a concise way. Okay, so teachers know the content and they know the students. And this technology has to be used well by teachers who know the content and know the students in order to be beneficial. So if you're thinking about VR and AR as potentially replacing teachers, remember, this is not about replacing anyone, but this is about doing what we do, which is serving our students and serving them better. Now, we already embrace new technology and new teaching methodologies all the time. I know all of us in March or April of the last year started using Zoom, started doing all of that just impromptu professional development so that we could serve our students on the spot. We all started making videos. I created a YouTube channel full of videos. We have used flipped classrooms. That's one that I've never quite done, but I've always wanted to try. I use standards-based grading in my class, but there are all of these technologies and teaching methodologies that we use in order to engage our students better. AR and VR, that's augmented reality or augmented virtual reality. This is the best technology out there that I don't think we're already using. Some people are using it, but we could be using it better, and we could be using it on a larger scale. To achieve the full potential of what AR and VR can do, we need the hearts and minds of real teachers, people who know the content and know their students and know what their students need to take something good and make it great. This is about, I believe that AR and VR have the power to transform education. It's the power for all of us to level up. And that's not to replace anyone, but to take what we've been doing for so long and just take it to the next level. Now, another thing that I'll say about this is, regardless of what anyone tells you, augmented reality and virtual reality, augmented virtual reality, these are not the answers to all of your teaching prayers. Having this does not mean that there will be no frustrations for you as a teacher, and it does not mean that there are going to be no frustrations for your students. But what it is about taking technology that we have and creating an immersive experience so that students aren't just trying to recall some mathematical object, for example, and recall what it's supposed to represent. For example, they'll learn how to compute a gradient in my Calculus 3 class, and then I'll tell them that the gradient points in the direction of steepest ascent, and we'll talk about what that means. And we'll talk about what it means in 2D, we'll talk about what it means in 3D, and how those vectors are related to curves and surfaces. But when I tell my students that, they may not get it. They may have to imagine in their mind's eye and say, oh yeah, and they might draw things on a 2D sheet of paper, and they'll do the best they can with something that's 3D, drawing it in 2D. Say, okay, that's fine. But with AR and VR, instead of doing that where they're constantly trying to imagine something that maybe not all of them can imagine, they're going to get it because they're immersed in that environment, and we've taken something that's very abstract and we've made it concrete. That's the potential for using AR and VR in the mathematics classroom. It has so many applications in biology as well, and other fields. Now, I'm not familiar with all of those other fields, but I can see how great it would be for students to ride roller coasters that are given by vector valued functions. And when I say a roller coaster, I don't mean like an actual roller coaster. I mean an immersive environment where you feel like you're on a roller coaster, but actually you're just sitting in a chair in this immersive environment. That's what I'm talking about there. Anyway, back to the question, will this replace our teachers? There is no way that AR and VR can replace our teachers. There's so much that you do. I know you put your heart into this. I know you put your mind and your creativity into this. I know you get frustrated when you feel like they're cheating. You get frustrated when they're mad at you. I get frustrated too. I think that's part of the experience. or part of the teaching experience. But when they have that aha moment, you know, it's all worth it. Um, and especially when you're getting to share your favorite subject with people like I am. So what I'm saying to you is this: you're not going to be replaced. If we want to take AR and VR, augmented virtual reality, to the next level, so that it's not just being used by some, but it's being used by everyone, and the students are at home getting an immersive learning experience instead of maybe watching a 20-minute YouTube video, which isn't bad, but could potentially get boring um, if the video is not as interesting. Uh, yeah, we need you to to transform education so that the students who are sitting at home have that type of transformative learning experience they would have had they were sitting next to you in your virtual classroom. That can happen. The virtual classroom can feel a lot like the traditional classroom, um, but we can take it and make it better while they're sitting in their own homes if we do the work. Um, and the work, unfortunately, again, falls on teachers. And I know that not every teacher uh, will want to do that work initially. They'll say, "Oh, this is, you know, some new fad that's supposed to help, and I know what works for my students." But I just ask you to consider it, because if a student can feel torsion, if they can feel curvature through an experience, if they can see the unit tangent vector and the unit normal vector and the binormal vector, and they can see the centripetal and tangential components of acceleration, if they can see it and if they can manipulate it and if they can write their own functions and experience that with your help, I mean, you're talking about a very different learning experience than sitting at home and reading your book and watching videos that came with the course. Um, even when those are great videos, even when it's excellent. Um, I believe what we're doing is good, and I am proud of the work teachers do, but I think that we can make it great, and I think that augmented virtual reality is the way to do that. Last thing I want to say in this video is that I love, you know, that pop culture science fiction, you know, Star Wars, Star Trek. I always think of Tony Stark like swiping through the air with his models, and like, how great is it for a student to be able to do that in their own home? And it turns out we have technology, an app that they can put on their phone and glasses that they can attach to that phone. And they can swipe it and they can turn it around, and maybe we can get to the point where they're graphing their own surfaces, surfaces and curves and all of that, and experiencing it and seeing it, what it looks like from all of these different angles, and manipulating it, and understanding the relationship between that algebra that so many of them are comfortable with and the geometry, or if they're comfortable with the geometry, helping them understand how the algebra matches up with the geometry. So don't be afraid of being replaced. I think this is going to help all of us do our jobs better if we want to. And of course, we don't have to, but just think of the potential. Think of all those aha moments. And I think that if the learning curve, if we flatten the curve enough the learning curve enough when it comes to this, you'll want to adopt it because it helps you to better serve your students.